Dani'el, chapter 3. Nebuchadnezzar the king had a gold statue made, 90 feet high and 9 feet wide, which he set up on the plain of Dura in the province of Bavel. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king summoned the viceroys, prefects, governors, judges, treasurers, counselors, sheriffs, and all the provincial officials to assemble and come to the dedication of the statue, which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. The viceroys, prefects, governors, judges, treasurers, counselors, sheriffs, and all the provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the statue, which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. They stood in front of the statue that Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and a herald proclaimed, "Peoples, nations, languages, you are ordered that when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, harp, zither, lute, bagpipe, and the rest of the musical instruments, you are to fall down and worship the gold statue that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship is to be thrown immediately into a blazing hot furnace." Therefore, when all the peoples heard the sound of the horn, pipe, harp, zither, lute, and the rest of the musical instruments, all the people, nations, and languages fell down and worshipped the gold statue that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. But then some Kasdim approached and began denouncing the Jews. They said to Nebuchadnezzar the king, "May the king live forever. Your Majesty, you have ordered that everyone who hears sound of the horn, pipe, harp, zither, lute, bagpipe, and the rest of the musical instruments is to fall down and worship the gold statue, and that whoever does not fall down and worship is to be thrown into a blazing hot furnace. There are some Jews whom you have put in charge of the affairs of the province of Bavel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and these men, your Majesty, have paid no attention to you. They do not serve your gods, and they do not worship the gold statue you set up." In a raging fury, Nebuchadnezzar ordered that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought. When the men had been brought before the king, Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, is it true that you neither serve my gods nor worship the gold statue I set up? All right then, if you are prepared, when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, harp, zither, lute, bagpipe, and the rest of the musical instruments, to fall down and worship the gold statue, very well. But if you won't worship, you will immediately be thrown into a blazing hot furnace. And what God will save you from my power then?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered the king, "Your question doesn't require an answer from us. Your Majesty, if our God, whom we serve, is able to save us, he will save us from the blazing hot furnace and from your power. But if he doesn't, we want you to know, your Majesty, that we will neither serve your gods nor worship the gold statue which you have set up." Nebuchadnezzar became so utterly enraged that his face was distorted with anger against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He ordered the furnace made 7 times hotter than usual. Then he ordered some of the strongest men in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing hot furnace. So these men were tied up in their cloaks, tunics, robes, and other clothes, and thrown into the blazing hot furnace. The king's order was so urgent and the furnace so overheated that the men carrying Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were burned to death by the flames. These 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell bound into the blazing hot furnace. Suddenly Nebuchadnezzar sprang to his feet. Alarmed, he asked his advisers, "Didn't we throw 3 men bound into the flames?" They answered the king, "Yes, of course, your Majesty." But he exclaimed, "Look, I see 4 men, not tied up, walking around there in the flames, unhurt, and the 4th looks like one of the gods." Nebuchadnezzar approached the flames, unhurt. Verse 26. Nebuchadnezzar approached the opening of the blazing hot furnace and said, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you servants of El Elyon, come out and come here." Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego emerged from the flames. The viceroys, prefects, governors, and royal advisers who were there saw that the fire had had no power on the bodies of these men, Not even their hair was singed. Their clothes looked the same, and they didn't smell of fire. Nebuchadnezzar said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angel to deliver his servants who trusted in him. They defiled the royal order to the point of being willing to give up their bodies, in order not to serve or worship any god but their own God. Therefore I herewith decree that anyone, no matter from which people, nation, or language, who says anything to insult the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, is to be torn limb from limb, and his house is to be reduced to rubble, because there is no other God who can save like this." Then the king gave Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego higher rank in the province of Babel. The following letter was sent out from Nebuchadnezzar the king to all the peoples, nations, and languages living throughout the earth. Shalom Rav, abundant peace. I am pleased to recount the signs and wonders which the Most High God has done for me. How great are his signs, how powerful his wonders. His kingdom lasts forever, and he rules all generations. End of Dani'el, chapter 3.